Welcome, dearly beloved anointed ones. Drama survives on confusion. Accountability survives on records. That line alone explains why the noise is suddenly stopping, and why someone who lived off stirring chaos is now discovering that paper doesn't panic, timestamps don't forget, and numbers don't lie just because a voice gets louder. What once looked like endless confusion was never random. It was a system. And every system leaves a trail, even when it thinks it's being clever. Here's a fact most people don't talk about. The majority of serious legal and financial cases don't collapse because of a single big mistake. They unravel because of patterns, repeated delays, repeated stories that don't quite match, repeated misunderstandings that somehow always benefit the same person. Drama makers believe if they keep the room loud enough, no one will notice the ledger quietly filling up in the corner. They forget that institutions don't get tired, they wait. What makes this moment different is not justice suddenly waking up with good intentions. It's math finally getting its turn. Money doesn't disappear, it gets redirected, stalled, parked in excuses, or hidden behind emotional smoke. And once that smoke clears, there's nowhere left to stand. That's when legal trouble doesn't announce itself. It simply arrives, dressed in paperwork, deadlines, and consequences that do not negotiate. There's also something unintentionally funny about how drama behaves under pressure. The same person who once had endless energy for chaos suddenly develops a deep respect for process, transparency, and clearing things up. Amazing how professionalism appears right on time, usually right after accountability shows up uninvited. It's not growth, it's survival instinct. Meanwhile, the money everyone thought was gone forever is quietly finding its way back, not because of luck, not because of sympathy, but because once narratives collapse, funds move. That's how the real world works. No speeches, no theatrics, just correction. This isn't a story about noise winning. It's about noise aging badly. And the moment when the one who thrived on drama realizes the stage is gone, the spotlight is off, and the only thing left is the bill, itemized, dated, and finally due. Number 1, the chaos they created became documented behavior, not rumor. The drama maker thrived on chaos. Every lie, every exaggeration, every sudden threat or diversion was part of a carefully built illusion that made them feel untouchable. At the time, it all felt messy, unpredictable, and impossible to pin down. People shrugged it off as gossip, coincidences, or just bad timing. But chaos has a habit of leaving footprints, even when the person creating it thinks they are invisible. Every skipped payment, every contradictory statement, every frantic email or rushed explanation, none of it disappeared. Each moment was being recorded, logged, and stored, whether in emails, bank statements, contracts, or witness accounts. The drama felt big, but the reality was that it was quietly building a map of their behavior, one that nobody could ignore forever. What makes this so powerful is that patterns are far more revealing than single events. One bad decision can be dismissed, two can be explained. But when similar behaviors repeat over weeks, months, and years, what was once chaos becomes a clear, traceable path. Investigators, accountants, and legal professionals don't chase feelings, they chase patterns. Every frantic attempt to cover up or manipulate became another piece of evidence, another line on the timeline that no amount of drama could erase. The irony is sharp. The very energy that once made them feel untouchable, this constant push, this frantic manipulation, was what ended up exposing them. While they thought they were controlling everything, the world was quietly recording it all. Those little details dismissed by others as meaningless noise added up. The documents, the transactions, the emails, the inconsistencies. They created a chain of truth stronger than any emotional argument, stronger than any story they told. Now, what felt invisible has become undeniable. The chaos didn't hide them, it defined them. And for the first time, it's clear to everyone involved exactly who was responsible, exactly what they did, and exactly why the consequences finally arrived. The very system they tried to outsmart turned out to be patient, precise, and relentless. And it didn't need theatrics to catch them. It only needed time. Number 2, they mistook access to you for ownership of outcomes. For the drama maker, being close to you felt like possession. Every email, every meeting, every transaction was treated as a license to control outcomes, as if proximity automatically granted them authority over your life, your decisions, and yes, your money. They believed that because they were present in your world, they could manipulate it to suit their agenda. Every delay they caused, every distraction they introduced, every excuse they made was designed to convince themselves and anyone watching that they were indispensable. But access is not ownership. Being in the room does not mean you dictate the result, and familiarity does not mean entitlement. That was their fatal miscalculation. This illusion of control often blinds people to reality. They measure influence by how often you react or how stressed you become rather than by any tangible results. They assume compliance is agreement and chaos is mastery. While they were busy believing they were running the show, they were actually leaving traces of mismanagement, inconsistencies, and misappropriation behind. Every move intended to consolidate power only added to the evidence that they were overstepping boundaries. Access can be observed, monitored, and documented. Ownership cannot be faked. Meanwhile, the law doesn't operate on perception. Systems of accountability, financial audits, contracts, investigations, don't care about confidence, boldness, or the illusion of authority. They only care about who is responsible for actions, funds, and outcomes. Every assumption the drama maker made about controlling the narrative crumbled the moment these systems entered. What they saw as power turned into vulnerability. The closer they tried to be, the more visible their mistakes became. Ultimately, their belief in entitlement created the very situation they feared. The access they prized became the trail investigators could follow. The decisions they tried to dominate became the proof that they had no right to dominate them at all. The law doesn't punish presence, it punishes misuse. And in mistaking access for ownership, they set the stage for accountability to arrive in full force, exposing them in ways that no drama, intimidation, or charm could undo. Number 3, the money didn't disappear. It was misdirected. One of the biggest misconceptions people have about situations like this is that money simply vanishes. It doesn't. What happens is far more telling. It gets redirected, stalled, or hidden behind layers of excuses and smoke screens. The drama maker made it seem like the funds were gone forever, untouchable, or lost to some mysterious fate. But every dollar follows a trail, and when someone thinks they can bury it in confusion, the system quietly keeps track. Bank records, transactions, transfers, receipts. Every step creates a breadcrumb that can't be erased, no matter how frantic or clever the attempts to obscure it may seem. The brilliance of this point is in its simplicity. Money is always accountable whether people like it or not. What was once perceived as a loss was never actually missing. It was in motion, waiting for the right eyes to trace it back. What the drama maker saw as freedom, the ability to manipulate, delay, or withhold, was actually the setup for their own exposure. Each rerouted dollar, each delayed transfer, and each fabricated excuse created patterns that couldn't lie. Patterns that the right person or system would eventually decode. It's also a lesson in patience and timing. The return of funds is rarely dramatic in the way that stories make it out to be. It's a calculated process. Legal and financial authorities move carefully, following paper trails, verifying accounts, and ensuring that restitution is precise. The moment it starts flowing back is not luck or coincidence. It's the result of those systems functioning exactly as they were designed. The drama makers' frantic attempts to cover their tracks, their overconfidence in misdirection, and their reliance on emotional chaos all collapsed under a single principle. Money can't be hidden from accountability forever. And here's the unspoken truth that's satisfying to anyone who's been wronged. While they were busy thinking they controlled the narrative, the very movement of the money was silently preparing to come back to its rightful place. What felt like disappearance was never really gone. It was simply waiting for justice to catch up. When the funds return, it's not just about reclaiming what was taken. It's about proving that manipulation has limits and that systems, no matter how slow, always follow the truth. Number 4, their drama was a distraction strategy that failed under scrutiny. For the drama maker, chaos was never just a byproduct. It was the tool. Every outburst, every exaggerated story, every sudden crisis was carefully designed to redirect attention, to exhaust focus, and to make you doubt your own instincts. The goal was simple: keep the target busy reacting so no one would notice the discrepancies, the delays, or the mismanagement happening behind the scenes. While everyone else was caught up in the noise, they assumed the real work, misappropriating funds, bending rules, or covering mistakes, would go unseen. But distraction has a shelf life, and scrutiny doesn't sleep. The brilliance of this moment lies in how predictable human systems are. Drama thrives on immediate reaction. It relies on emotion, urgency, and confusion. But structured systems, legal processes, audits, and investigations don't react to the drama itself. They respond to facts, records, and consistency. Every attempt to mislead, every manufactured crisis, every desperate excuse now stands as proof of intent, not innocence. The very tactics designed to protect them became evidence of how much they needed protection. What makes the collapse so satisfying is how quietly it happens. There's no dramatic showdown, no public confrontation required. Once a neutral authority begins analyzing the trail, the distractions vanish, they become irrelevant. Emails, receipts, transactions, and dates don't get tired. They don't need persuasion. They exist. The drama that once felt overwhelming and chaotic suddenly looks small, desperate, and transparent. Every attempt to control perception only amplified the visibility of the underlying truth. The lesson here is clear. Distraction only works until someone chooses to look at what's really there. The drama maker's strategy depended on perpetual confusion, but when calm, methodical observation entered the scene, the illusion crumbled. What they thought was protection became exposure. What they thought was power became vulnerability. And the moment scrutiny fully landed, the chaos they relied on to hide their misdeeds stopped being a shield and started being a spotlight, showing the world exactly who they were and why consequences were inevitable. Number 5, you weren't passive, you were compliant with process. It's easy to mistake quiet for weakness, but in situations like this, patience and adherence to process are far more powerful than any loud confrontation. While the drama maker thrived on chaos, distractions, and emotional manipulation, you were doing something far more effective. You were following procedure. Every email you saved, every document you recorded, every deadline you respected, and every step you took according to proper channels wasn't passive behavior. It was strategic compliance, and that compliance is what built an unshakable foundation for accountability. The drama maker never understood this. They believed that if they screamed loud enough, acted clever enough, or twisted situations convincingly enough, they could override structure. They thought momentum and panic could outweigh facts, and that emotion could bend rules. But the systems they underestimated don't react to theatrics. They react to documentation. The law, financial institutions, and investigative bodies operate on verifiable actions, timelines, and evidence. Your adherence to process meant that everything they tried to obscure, manipulate, or delay was quietly captured in a form that could not be disputed. There is a quiet satisfaction in knowing that while they were exhausting themselves with schemes and distractions, you were building the case for their own exposure without even needing to fight. You didn't have to argue louder, create drama, or prove them wrong in public. You let the rules, procedures, and timelines do the work. Every attempt they made to confuse or intimidate only became part of the permanent record, a part of the proof that would eventually lead to consequences they could not avoid. In the end, compliance with process doesn't just neutralize chaos. It turns it against the one who creates it. Your quiet persistence ensured that when the right authorities finally stepped in, the outcome was clear, undeniable, and just. The drama maker's power relied on your reaction. By choosing process over panic, you didn't just protect yourself. You handed them the very framework that would guarantee restitution and accountability, proving that patience and precision always outlast theatrics and impulsive chaos. Number 6. Their biggest mistake was assuming credibility renews itself. Credibility is not a renewable resource. It doesn't refill overnight. It doesn't automatically restore after a clever excuse. And it certainly doesn't reset because someone feels confident or bold. The drama maker lived under the dangerous illusion that they could behave recklessly, spin stories endlessly, and rely on the assumption that people would forget, forgive, or simply believe them again. They treated trust as if it were a luxury they could spend endlessly, without consequences. That assumption became their undoing. Every misstep, every lie, every overpromise chipped away at the credibility they assumed was permanent. At first, minor inconsistencies could be brushed off. A delay here, a small misrepresentation there. People were willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. But credibility doesn't accumulate indefinitely. It's measured by consistency, reliability, and accountability. Once they crossed the line from occasional error into pattern, every observer, whether a client, a partner, or a legal authority, began to notice. Those repeated contradictions, small as they seemed at the time, were quietly forming a narrative that could not be ignored. Their arrogance blinded them to the truth. The law and financial systems don't care about charm, excuses, or theatrics. They respond to facts, timelines, and evidence. Every attempt to repair reputation with words alone failed because credibility is proven through action, not persuasion. The more the drama maker relied on perception, the more visible their mismanagement became. While they believed they were controlling opinions, they were actually cementing the proof of their failures. The most telling part of this mistake is how irreversible it became. Once credibility erodes past a certain point, it doesn't come back through promises, apologies, or explanations. It can only be rebuilt through accountability and restitution. By assuming it renewed itself automatically, they ignored the systems of accountability waiting in the wings. Their power, influence, and perceived untouchability collapsed under scrutiny, leaving them exposed. What they thought was a safety net, the trust and belief of others, had quietly disappeared, replaced by records, evidence, and inevitable consequences that no amount of charm or drama could reverse. Number 7, money returns when narratives collapse. For the drama maker, the story was everything. They controlled the narrative, spun the chaos, and convinced everyone that the missing funds, delays, or mistakes were someone else's fault. or simply unavoidable. That narrative became their shield, a smokescreen that made it seem like nothing could be traced, verified, or reversed. But narratives, no matter how convincing, are fragile. When the story doesn't match the facts, when timelines are cross-checked, receipts examined, and accounts audited, the illusion begins to crack. And once that narrative collapses, the money that was lost has no place to hide. This collapse isn't dramatic or sudden in the way people expect. It's methodical, precise, and inevitable. Systems of accountability don't care about emotion or drama. They care about consistency and proof. When someone manipulates the story, delays processes, or misdirects funds, each action creates a trail. The narrative works only until someone decides to follow that trail without bias, without influence, and without being distracted by theatrics. The moment those facts align and expose the discrepancy, the narrative loses its power, and the frozen or misdirected funds begin moving back toward their rightful place. The process reveals something deeper about control. While the drama maker believed that managing perception meant controlling outcomes, they underestimated how much systems respond to truth rather than stories. Money doesn't flow based on charm, panic, or loud arguments. It flows when the record shows it should, when the deception is no longer credible, and when accountability steps in. Every document, transaction, and timeline contributes to the collapse of the false narrative. The return of money is more than just financial. It's symbolic. It's proof that manipulation has limits, that clever excuses eventually lose against verifiable evidence, and that what was once hidden behind drama and chaos can be reclaimed. The drama maker may have thought they controlled the world by controlling the story, but the systems that matter always favor the facts. Once those facts are clear, the funds follow, and justice, calm and precise, quietly asserts itself. Number 8. They underestimated how quietly you were being observed. The drama maker always believed that their actions were invisible, that the chaos they created was enough to distract attention from their mistakes. Every lie, every misdirection, every frantic explanation was designed to control perception, and they assumed no one was paying close enough attention to notice the patterns forming behind the scenes. What they didn't realize is that observation doesn't always announce itself. You weren't the only one watching, and neither were the systems responsible for accountability. Behind the noise, behind the distractions, records were being kept, transactions were being tracked, and inconsistencies were being catalogued. The quiet, watchful eyes were there the entire time, noting every move, every delay, and every attempt to manipulate the situation. There's a kind of irony in this, because drama thrives on visible reactions. The louder they were, the more energy they poured into spinning stories, the less they considered that those who were patient, methodical, and attentive could see the truth without engaging in the chaos. Every exaggerated claim, every diversion, every attempt to make you look unsure or overwhelmed only added to the dossier of evidence being quietly compiled. Those records weren't influenced by emotion, by panic, or by charm. They were factual, consistent, and precise. Their underestimation of observation is what ultimately exposed them. While they thought their cleverness and ability to manipulate perception would keep them safe, it did the opposite. The very energy they spent creating confusion made their patterns more obvious. They believed that being bold and controlling would protect them, but being observed quietly, consistently, and without bias revealed everything. By the time consequences arrived, it wasn't a surprise or a coincidence. The drama maker's miscalculations, their overconfidence, and their assumption of invisibility had built a complete, undeniable record. They didn't just lose control, they exposed themselves. What they thought was stealth turned into exposure. and the quiet eyes that had been watching all along ensured that every misstep, every attempt at misdirection, and every hint of manipulation became proof that they could no longer hide from accountability. Number 9. Their urgency now is proof they lost control. There's a very specific energy that comes from someone who believes they are in charge and suddenly realizes they aren't. It's visible in the frantic messages, the rushed explanations, the sudden attempts to fix things that have long been out of their hands. The drama maker is experiencing this energy now, and it's proof of one undeniable truth. They lost control. For months, maybe years, they operated under the illusion that their chaos, manipulation, and theatrics were unassailable. Every delayed payment, every confusing excuse, every emotional storm they stirred was meant to reinforce the sense that they were untouchable. But urgency doesn't come from power, it comes from exposure. What makes this so telling is how clearly it contrasts with their past behavior. When someone feels safe and in control, their moves are measured, their explanations calculated, their confidence unshaken. The drama maker once operated in this space, believing that the noise they created could override accountability. Now, every sudden call, every defensive email, every over-explained justification screams the opposite. The frantic energy isn't charm, it isn't cleverness. It's a survival instinct kicking in because the systems they thought they could manipulate have finally moved beyond their reach. Urgency reveals desperation. It exposes gaps in planning, mistakes in judgment, and the undeniable reality that someone else, not them, is directing the outcome. While they try to scramble, the foundation of facts, timelines, and documentation continues to function independently of their stress. It doesn't slow down, it doesn't get intimidated, and it doesn't bend to pressure. The more the drama maker tries to assert control now, the clearer it becomes that control was never theirs to begin with. The irony is sharp. The same person who thrived on creating chaos to feel untouchable is now reacting to it as if it's a personal attack, even though it's simply the natural consequence of the systems they underestimated. Their urgency is a silent confession that all their strategies, manipulations, and performances were temporary illusions. Control is gone, and their exposure is proof that accountability always arrives on its own schedule, whether they like it or not. Number 10. The system didn't favor you. It corrected imbalance. It's tempting to think that when money, justice, or accountability comes back into your hands, it's because the universe or fate decided to reward you. That's not what's happening here. What you're seeing is the system doing exactly what it was designed to do, correcting imbalance. The drama maker took advantage, manipulated processes, delayed funds, and created chaos to tilt outcomes in their favor. Systems, whether legal, financial, or institutional, exist to restore equilibrium when someone oversteps boundaries and abuses trust. What feels like a victory for you is really the natural function of rules, oversight, and structure asserting themselves. This correction is deliberate, not accidental. Every document, every timestamp, every verified transaction feeds into a system that doesn't need emotion to function. While the drama maker thought that noise, theatrics, and manipulation could bend reality, they ignored the fact that systems operate independently of charm or fear. They respond only to evidence and consistency. Their schemes couldn't overwrite the records. They couldn't trick the rules into ignoring what had been done. The imbalance they created had to be addressed, and the moment it was, restitution became inevitable. What makes this particularly satisfying is that it highlights a fundamental principle. Manipulation works only in the short term. The drama maker's confidence, built on perceived control, crumbles when structures designed to enforce fairness enter the picture. Systems don't reward virtue or patience. They correct deviations, hold people accountable, and restore what was improperly taken or mismanaged. Your patience, adherence to process, and careful tracking weren't just smart. They aligned you with that correction. This isn't luck, and it isn't personal favor. It's proof that rules exist to enforce fairness, even when someone is bold enough to think they can bypass them. The imbalance was temporary, and once evidence became undeniable, the system didn't pause, negotiate, or take sides. It simply acted. What returns to you now is more than money. It's validation that exploitation can be measured, tracked, and corrected. And for the drama maker, that's a lesson they can't spin, deny, or escape. Systems ultimately favor truth and accountability over deception and chaos. Number 11, their legal trouble is financial, not emotional. One of the biggest misunderstandings people have about situations like this is thinking that consequences are about feelings, about anger, revenge, or moral judgment. That's not how the system works. The drama maker's current legal trouble isn't personal, and it isn't about how anyone feels about them. It's about accountability, responsibility, and numbers. Every delay, mismanagement, or misappropriated fund leaves a clear, traceable trail. Legal and financial systems don't respond to noise, theatrics, or the drama of emotions. They respond to evidence. What's happening now is the inevitable outcome of actions that had measurable consequences, and it is completely impartial. This is what makes the situation so revealing. While the drama maker assumed their charm, manipulation, or dramatic tactics could buy them safety, the truth doesn't negotiate. The law doesn't care if they apologized, if they felt bad, or if anyone sympathized with their story. What matters is whether money was mishandled, contracts were ignored, obligations were unmet, or processes were broken. Every transaction, every timeline, and every documented misstep becomes part of a pattern that no amount of emotional spin can erase. Their attempts to control perception or influence opinion are meaningless in this framework. The system doesn't need feelings to enforce consequences. It only needs clarity, consistency, and evidence. What's striking is how unrelenting this is. Unlike emotions, which are temporary and subjective, financial accountability is measurable and enforceable. Once the processes are in motion, there's no negotiation for comfort, no pause for theatrics, no room for manipulation. The drama maker's frantic attempts to sway others or create confusion only expose their miscalculations further. Every move made in panic adds to the documentation of their failures, proving that their legal trouble isn't about sentiment. It's about liability. Ultimately, this clarity is powerful. It removes drama from the equation and puts the focus squarely on reality. The money, the records, and the timelines are immovable truths. What they thought was a battle of perception turns out to be a matter of precision and proof. Their exposure is unavoidable not because of emotion, but because financial accountability has no tolerance for excuses. Number 12, your patience outlasted their strategy. The drama maker built their whole approach around exhaustion and distraction. They relied on the idea that if they kept pushing, confusing, and overwhelming you long enough, you would break, give in, or make mistakes. Every delay, every misdirection, every attempt to manipulate was designed to wear you down, to make patience seem impossible, and to create openings for them to exploit. But patience is a weapon most people underestimate. By simply holding steady, documenting everything, and letting systems work as they were meant to, you outlasted the very strategy meant to dominate you. What's remarkable is how time functions in these situations. The drama maker thrives on urgency, chaos, and immediate reactions. They measure their success by how quickly they can provoke a response. But systems, legal, financial, procedural, don't operate on panic or emotion. They operate on evidence, timelines, and consistency. Your ability to remain patient didn't just neutralize the chaos, it transformed the chaos into evidence. Every frantic email, every desperate call, every ill-conceived excuse became part of a trail that exposed them fully. While they believed they were controlling the narrative, your patience ensured the narrative would collapse under its own inconsistencies. Patience also reveals strength in ways that theatrics cannot. By not reacting impulsively, by following procedure and letting process take its course, you forced accountability to do the work that drama cannot. It's a quiet power that doesn't announce itself with noise, but it's far more devastating than any argument, confrontation, or emotional outburst. The longer you maintained calm, the more the drama maker's energy worked against them, piling up mistakes that could no longer be excused or hidden. In the end, your patience was not passive, it was active resistance. It turned the strategy of manipulation into proof of wrongdoing. What they believed would exhaust you became the very mechanism that ensured justice would arrive. Their attempts to dominate, confuse, and intimidate failed not because of luck, charm, or confrontation, but because patience, methodical action, and adherence to process always outlast chaos, eventually leaving manipulation powerless in the face of truth. Number 13. The return of your money marks the end of their influence. When the drama maker loses control of funds, it's not just a financial correction. It's a complete collapse of the power they thought they had. Money is more than currency in situations like this. It's leverage, influence, and control. Every delayed payment, every mismanaged transaction, every excuse and diversion they used to manipulate outcomes was a way to assert dominance over you and the situation. The moment those funds begin to return, the illusion of control evaporates. They no longer have the power to dictate timelines, to instill fear, or to manipulate perception. Their influence, which once felt endless, is reduced to irrelevance. This shift is both practical and symbolic. Practically, the resources they once held over you are gone, removing their ability to interfere or intimidate. Every dollar that comes back is not just restitution. It's a reclamation of autonomy and control that was temporarily taken. Symbolically, the return of money signals that their attempts to dominate, mislead, or exploit have failed. It proves that manipulation has boundaries, and that no amount of chaos, drama, or theatrics can permanently hold sway when evidence, documentation, and procedure are on your side. The irony is sharp. The drama maker likely thought they were untouchable because they controlled resources. Their confidence, their boldness, their arrogance all stemmed from the leverage they believed they had over you. Yet, by underestimating systems, process, and your own steadiness, they set the stage for that leverage to be stripped away. What they believed was power was always temporary, and the moment the money returns, it becomes painfully clear that their influence was an illusion. Ultimately, this is the point where the game ends. The drama maker can no longer rewrite history, no longer control outcomes, and no longer dictate your response. Their ability to intimidate or manipulate vanishes with every transaction that moves back to its rightful place. The return of your money isn't just financial. It's a declaration that control, authority, and power belong to facts, process, and truth, not to those who thrive on chaos. It's a quiet but irreversible shift that ensures their era of influence is over, and your restoration is complete. Number 14. This wasn't luck. It was inevitability. What's happening now with the drama maker isn't a coincidence, a lucky break, or some sudden twist of fate. It's the inevitable result of a chain of actions, decisions, and patterns that could not escape consequence. Every misstep, every lie, every attempt to manipulate or misdirect created a trail that was quietly building toward this moment. Systems, legal, financial, and procedural, don't operate on chance. They operate on records, evidence, and consistency. And once those patterns exist, the outcome isn't uncertain. It's inevitable. The drama maker may have thought they were clever, untouchable, and unstoppable, but in reality, they were setting themselves up for exposure with every move. This inevitability is rooted in precision. The mismanagement, the chaos, the attempts to control perception, none of it existed in a vacuum. Every email, every delayed payment, every contradictory statement became part of a documented reality that could not be spun into fiction forever. While the drama maker relied on perception and theatrics, the underlying truth was quietly accumulating, aligning, and waiting for its moment. Once scrutiny arrived, the momentum of those documented actions was unstoppable. What felt sudden to the drama maker is actually the natural consequence of time-revealing patterns. There's a profound lesson in this. What the drama maker mistook for risk-free manipulation was actually a countdown. Every corner cut, every shortcut, and every misdirection added to the inevitability of accountability. Their confidence, built on chaos and perceived control, blinded them to the systems quietly observing, tracking, and preparing to correct the imbalance. This inevitability also carries a sense of justice without emotion. It's not about revenge, luck, or morality. It's about patterns meeting consequence. The drama maker's exposure, the return of what was theirs to claim, and the collapse of their influence are all natural results of predictable processes. They didn't get caught by chance. They reached the unavoidable conclusion of a path they themselves carved. And for you, it's proof that patience, process, and consistency always outlast chaos, manipulation, and theatrics, ensuring that what is rightfully yours will inevitably be restored. Conclusion: what we've witnessed isn't just the collapse of a drama maker's schemes. It's a masterclass in how truth, patience, and process always outlast chaos, manipulation, and empty theatrics. Every move they made to confuse, intimidate, or misdirect only built the foundation for their exposure. Every lie, every delay, every attempt to control perception left a trail that no amount of charm, panic, or desperation could erase. The chaos they thrived on became evidence. Their assumed control turned into vulnerability. Their credibility, once taken for granted, crumbled under the weight of repeated missteps. And the money, once hidden or misdirected, returned not because of luck or favor, but because systems designed to enforce accountability followed the facts, the records, and the timelines they thought they could escape. This isn't about personal victory. It's about inevitability. It's about how structured processes, quiet observation, and methodical patience dismantle manipulation with surgical precision. While they believed they were untouchable, the reality was far different. The drama maker was merely accelerating their own exposure, every frantic act contributing to the documentation that would ultimately seal their fate. Every moment of emotional noise they created, every attempt to control or intimidate, became another piece of proof that accountability cannot be negotiated away. What you see now, the return of what was yours, the collapse of their influence, and the unveiling of their true character, is the natural outcome of truth meeting persistence. And there's a lesson here that goes beyond money or legal consequences. It's a reminder that chaos can only dominate so long as patience, process, and consistency remain ignored. Those who withstand the storm, follow procedure, and allow the system to do its work are never truly at the mercy of manipulation. Restoration is not a gift. It is the unavoidable result of alignment with truth, evidence, and justice. If this breakdown resonated with you, and you want more insights into how truth, Strategy and accountability shape outcomes that manipulators never anticipate. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button if you found this eye-opening, comment below with your thoughts or experiences, and share this video so others can see how systems, patience, and evidence always win over chaos and deception. Your engagement helps this knowledge reach more people who need to see the power of inevitability in action. God bless you.